Today I have a Kia key and I have the shell. There's a blank key and I'm going to replace the shell with this existing key that already works, but the buttons, as you can see, are all messed up. So we're going to go over how to take this apart, and there's a spring and a little like a clasp in here to hold the key from, to let the key spring out when you press the button. And that's majorly the only thing you really have to worry about when you take one of these apart. And under the Kia logo, there is a little like a plastic rivet that's melted, and you have to kind of dig that out to get this thing apart. And then you have to pry along the sides once you take this battery cover off. And to take the battery cover off, there's a little, you just kind of push it. There's the battery cover. Come off, and we'll set this other key apart. And these buttons are tore up on this key fob. So I'm going to take the battery out, because there's so many videos out there that some of them are wrong, some of them are correct. The ones I have seen have been correct to take this apart. So in order to get this apart, along this seam, let's see if I can get you in focus. Along this seam right here, there's some clips on the inside of this case here. And on the other side, right along through here, there's some more clips. And then to get this thing apart, what you have to do, the first thing, is peel this little, it's just kind of glued on. Get you a little sharp knife, kind of pry it up if you can gingerly. See, it's got some adhesive on the back, so I'm going to lay that over here off to the side. And there's that little rivet. So what I'm going to do is just take my knife and just kind of whittle it out a little bit. Just enough to get, as you can see, just enough to get the hole bigger, because this is the old remote and we're not going to be using this remote anymore. So I like to make a big enough hole to maybe get rid of that. So you can see where I've widened that hole up enough with the knife. And this is a pretty sharp knife, so you just kind of go in there and just get what you can. Don't go too deep. Don't go drilling all the way through it. And the next step is we got to separate this case. Now in here it's kind of tricky. Just kind of get your get your knife in here. Now it is glued, so you have to kind of get it in to pry it up. It's just very, very tough. You know, some videos make it easy, but because we're really just worried about the plastic shell, and if you dig too deep, you'll hit this circuit board, and then your remote will be toast, basically. So I know this looks kind of dangerous. It is, especially when you have a really sharp knife. But there's glue in here on each side of this case separation right here. There's a seam. The seam goes all the way around and it's glued to this, and there's little clips that hold it. So once you get your knife in there enough, and remember, this is the old one, this is the new one. We're not doing anything to the new one just yet. So it's just a process of getting the seam. You could probably use a screwdriver. The knife seems to work a little bit better. because it'll get the smaller point will get down in there and pry this case apart. And now there is there's some videos where people are taking their screwdriver in this slot here and just kind of pry a little bit. You want to hold this button and the key in your hand, so that way if it does come apart, there's a spring in here, and you have to be careful that spring doesn't go flying. But you have a spare if the spring does go flying, because there's a spring in this new remote. But you just want to be careful. So all I'm doing is I'm just prying left and right to get this case, and you can hear it, to get this pried open just enough, and you can see that seam opens up a little bit. Because like I said, there is glue on here. So you just have to kind of pry this apart. Just be careful, because you don't want to cut yourself. So I'm trying to get along this seam, because this little battery section and this top piece is one unit. So this will come off in a clamshell, and then you'll have the buttons on this side, and then this seam that runs all the way along. But you want to get this battery section opening, and you have to get down in there and just pry it up, so you can get the separation. So now I'm going to go on this other side. You can kind of hear the glue separating. That's why if you take your knife and wiggle it, it'll break that seal where the glue is. Plus you'll be able to pry this side apart. And I'm just kind of prying up to get under, get that lip out of the way. So as you can see, how I've got this edge open and this other edge open, and then you have to get this seam to separate enough. See how it's doing. You pry it open. It's kind of tricky to get in there to separate it. So you just keep prying and try to get this separated in here as best you can. And usually you could probably use pair of pliers, or so it's very, very hard to get this thing apart. This section here is the trickiest part to get apart. Might be able to pry on the spring area. There we go. See that pop? And as you can see, I've got a bigger gap now. And there's your spring. If you can see the spring in there. So it's just a matter of getting things separated. And because it's glued, and it's very, very tricky to get that apart. And see, that little plastic rivet is really holding on. Gotten a few pops and cracks out of it, but it's still very, very difficult to separate. Just have to keep working it. Get a few pops and crackles out of it. Try to get it to at least to let that adhesive loose so you can pry it more and get it separated. Because this is the battle, is just getting this thing to separate. Because that plastic rivet really holds it in there, you know, to keep it from coming apart. I'll try to pry just a little bit to get the case separated. Of course, it doesn't want to. And it's just a matter of getting the separation right here. And getting an edge below the case to pry it up. Kind of like that. The circuit board is right underneath where I'm prying, so I'm trying to be very, very gentle to not take that out. But it is possible to take it apart. So what I'm going to show you on the new one, you pry the battery case off. You just kind of get in here and squeeze. And on this one, you can see where the line is a little bit more defined, and it goes down in there. Just like the other one, you just kind of pry it and get it separated. As you can see how the separation is coming better on this one because of that little rivet on the new one is holding it. And as you can see on the new one, you see the locks right there, and this is already ready to pretty much come apart, as you can see. I don't want to take it apart just yet, but basically there's little catches. There we go. There's little catches on the side, if you can see that. And there's little catches on the side here. And there's your spring. And then once you get that unsnapped, the case will, and you have to undo this spring just a little bit. So the case will come apart, as you can see. And then this is your spring that I was talking about, and the little button. And this little this all comes apart, but this only goes in one way into this lock. And the little hook on the spring, if you can see the little hook, when you put this together, there's a little channel right there. You get the light. See that little groove right there at my nail? That spring piece goes in there like that when you're assembling, and then you have to twist it. I'm trying to remember which way, but you have to twist it so that way when you press the button, the key will pop out. But we'll look at that in just a minute. I just wanted to show you that basically this piece is what I'm trying to pry off the new one. It's got some channels, got a channel on the other side to hold it. And that's what I'm trying to break loose from the old key. Just a little hooky thingy, whatever you want to call it. So it's like I said, there's glue as well as the clips that hold this in. And it's just a matter of just getting a point and prying up. You can kind of hear that glue as I'm just kind of driving the screwdriver in there to make a point, and then kind of prying up just to break the seal between the glue and the plastic case. Like that. It's just kind of tricky. You just have to kind of keep getting with it. There we go. See, now it's starting to come apart a little bit better. See that rivet on the original key? That rivet really holds in there, and it goes all the way through from this side to this side. And they melt it, and it's just is what really holds it in. So you just kind of have to keep prying to get this loose. And of course, a knife is probably not the best to use, but you have to pretty much destroy this thing just to get the circuit board out. And be careful. Just be careful. So as you can see, it's separating a little bit more. There we go. It's getting there now. So it's just, you don't want this spring to go flying. So I'm just going to kind of compress it with my knife so I can get it out of the way. So I can take this button out. Doesn't want to cooperate. There's a little stop in there to hold it. Let's get it past. There's a little post that the spring goes around. I'm just trying to get it around that post so I can get the key out. And I've almost got it, so there's the key and the button. Still intact. I'll set that off to the side. And there's like this little bushing piece. It's not on the new one. It's just on the old one. So there we go. See, now we've made some progress. So there. See, it's doable, but you got to really get in there and whittle away at the side here, like I was doing. Just you can kind of see that in the light where that clip is that holds it, and there's another clip right here, and then there's like two clips, but I've stuck my knife down in there and broke them. And this is the main board. Let me look at it real quick to make sure it doesn't look damaged. It does not. Don't have any scratches. I don't have any scratches on the board. Don't see any scratches. Just to, and what's holding this in, they have melted the plastic right there. I'm trying to get a good angle, so they melted the plastic right there and right here, just to hold this board in this unit here. So what I'm going to do is take my knife, kind of cut the plastic off as best I can without damaging this board, and then this board should just pop off. And then once that comes out, I'll start the assembly on the new. See, that's where the board goes. And one thing to notice when you're putting this thing back together, you see how this is the positive for the battery, and you see how it's inside, on the inside of this channel. There's nothing on the back because that's the negative there, but you want to make sure that that positive bar is on the inside of this plastic. And an easy way to do that, what I have done on another one of these, once I got these plastic cut away, when I put the new, this one, when I put the new board in, you can see that little plastic piece with the little nub on it, and then there's another one right there where my knife is, that little nub. What I do is I line the board on those marks, on those little plastic pieces, like this one right here, and this one right here, and then this bottom one right here to this one right here. And then I take my soldering iron and I melt that over just a little bit. Stay in frame here. Melt this over and melt this over just to make it flush, almost flush. But it's just a way to hold this board in so that this board won't fall out when I'm assembling the new one. It won't fall out. So what I'm going to do is just kind of scrape away the plastic just a little. That's why you need a sharp knife. Just kind of pry that plastic away. And see, the board just popped out loose. Just a little piece of plastic right there was holding it in. So that's the old. Get the old. This is the old one. So then here's the new piece, brand new, and it sets down in there. And you line up your plastic right here and right here. And once you do that, you can see how the positive bar is on the inside of this circle where the battery goes. And that's your correct alignment. Because if you don't, now I have assembled like 2 of these already. If I didn't melt the last one that I did here, every time I'm assembling this thing, this board is jumping around and it's not even lining up. And when you're trying to put this case on and hold the key and get it lined up, it's just a mess. So if you have a soldering iron or some way to melt this plastic right here, melt it down just to kind of force it down over that board. And the same thing with this one here. Just kind of melt it a little bit and push it down, spread it out. So that way this board will be in there and it won't fall out. And then just make sure your alignment with your the positive bar is on the inside of this circle. And once you do that, then this will stay and it'll be in correct alignment. So when you put this cover on it, the buttons will line up with the 3 white buttons right here. That's your lock, that's your tailgate, and that's your unlock. So I'm going to turn my soldering iron on here and I'll be right back. Okay, I have my soldering iron all heated up, and what I'm going to do is, if this thing will focus, I'm just going to melt this little plastic just enough to hold it. Just kind of like that, just to keep it from moving. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other stop right here. I'll turn it around so I can get a better angle on it. Just kind of melt it. Just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot of heat or a whole lot of So now, as you can see, the metal is where it's supposed to be. Clean my soldering iron off here. And it's in there. It's not moving. A little bit of movement, but not much. Plug my soldering iron. So now, the new key part, the case, and you can see the little channel right there at the tip of my thumb. That's where that little spring hooks into. So in order for you to flip this out, you have to turn it the other way like that, just one turn. So that way the key will pop out. So as you see, I had to hook it. And now I'm going to put the case on and get your button in and make sure that your key opens like that before you snap this thing together. So key works like it's supposed to. So let me show you that again. Take this top piece off and I'll show you how you can get that spring to go. So I'm going to just gingerly, so when you have your board in like that, and you have it hooked like it's supposed to be, there's a little channel down in there. Hopefully you can see it, if it'll focus. So you go the opposite, you go basically over, and you keep pushing down, and the key will want to go out as you're doing that. So then you just have to find that little spot that the key will go into. Well, I've messed that up. So you get your key back in there, hook your little spring, make sure it goes down in there, and then you go over it one time. Kicked off. So you see how the long piece, there's a long piece of plastic, and then you hook it in like that, and then you twist it, because the long piece is what tells you what direction it's going to go to on that plastic. So then you just keep it kind of held down like that and let go of the button, and now it's locked in there. See that? So the button is still able to move, but I'm holding the key so it doesn't come flying out. When I let go of push the button, the key is wanting to go out. So I'm going to hold it right there. Get the new case. Put the button in first. Just kind of like that. Don't snap it yet. Make sure your key pops out. It does. It locks. So now all you have to do is snap this thing together, just like so. Key's still working, board looks good, battery terminals, it's all in there. Don't have the battery in there yet, so the plus sign always goes up. You hook it in there like that, push it down and hold it, and then make sure your light's working. Take your cover, battery cover, just kind of snaps in. Not the best fitting case, but it's in there. It's in there. And then you take your little screw that came with it, put that in there. And what I did before, I took a little bit of like hot glue and put a dab like right here, and then I took the Kia logo and stuck it back on there. So that's basically how you'll do it. You'll this case is a lot easier to take apart to replace than the original one. The original one it's got like a little bead of glue. I saw the other one I had a little seam of glue around here, and it was just a pain in the butt to get off. But as you can see, it's got this little like bracket on the old key, just so that way the board will be supported in there and it won't move. And then you have your little plastic stobs in there that are holding the board down, and that's all basically I've done. So all you have to do is you can leave the Kia logo sticker off if you wanted to, or put it back on. Put your little screw in there, and you got your working remote. Simple as that. Just be careful. Like I said, just be careful when you're taking this thing apart. There's the Kia logo. It has a little bit of glue on it, but I scrape it off my fingernail because it's just like single-sided glue, and it's very easy to maneuver. put you some hot glue if you have hot glue, or just a little dab of silicone or something like that, just something to make it stick. And then that way you can stick your, after you put your screw in here, you put your little Kia logo back on there and just cover that screw up, make it look factory. But this is really a pain in the butt to get apart. You have to pry down, and you can see how deep it goes down into this little channel here, because it goes almost flush with it. It's really a pain in the butt to get this off the factory key. The new key is fairly straightforward. It just unsnaps, and it should just come out once you take the screw out. It should just come right apart. No major damage to it, and don't cut yourself. Like I said, a sharp knife, but you could probably use like a small straight. This is a Phillips, but you could probably use a small straight to maybe pry in there. I like using a knife because I have a bigger handle and I can get more leverage to pry. Just be careful when you're using that. So, but there it is. Works. Board seems to be working just fine. So, key is working. And the board is working. Put your screw in if you want to. Put your little Kia logo back on there, or whatever you want to do. And that's it. But just be careful taking this apart, because like I said, you have to get rid of that little stop that's in there, because it goes down in here, and there's a little plastic, like little stab piece like this that goes down in there, and it joins these two cases together somehow in here, right there. And I think that's it right there. I'm not really sure, but it's really a pain in the butt to get apart the factory one. You have to really, really pry it just to get it up. And I think this gasket or whatever might be the glue that holds it. I'm not really sure. Can't really tell, but it's in there. So just be careful taking that apart. Pry it, squeeze it, whatever you have to do. Just be careful that board is attached to this piece. Where the battery goes, the board is attached to this piece. And yeah, that's it. So hopefully that helps somebody. It's little, you could do them, if you did a bunch of these at one time, you could probably figure out an easy way to get them separated. But I've only done like 2 or 3 right now. So one was a different kind of Kia key. It had more buttons on it. And that was fairly straightforward to take apart. These smaller units are they're really embedded in each other. So you got to just really pry and pry and pry, and pretty much destroy this case just to get the board apart so you can put the new one together. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.